Welcome to Think Enriched with Amy Robles, the show where we examine how money affects every aspect of your life. The place where we look at the details of your future by focusing on the small decisions you make today. Because we all know, living an enriched life is about way more than money. And now, here's your host, Amy Robles.
Hey, welcome to Think Enriched. I'm your host, Amy Robles. Listen, really excited about today's show. Good stories here. Great information. I'm just so impressed with today's guest. But before we begin, let me remind you just a couple of things. Do you know that you can qualify to win one of 3 copies of the Gallup Strength Finder 2.0 I'm giving away for free? Just be sure to leave a rating and review, and you will automatically be entered. And if you'd like to leave a tip in our virtual tip jar, go to patreon.com/enriched and support the show. All right, today on Think Enriched, I'm so excited to have our guest today. He's the kind of good friend to have around in an emergency. He is a firefighter and a paramedic, and he also knows the ins and outs of how to make your money work. Besides all that, he's a peach. Hey, welcome to the show, Chris Peach.
Hey, Amy, thanks for having me. I'm real excited to be here.
That's awesome. I really have loved watching your writing style and hearing your story, and you do things differently than most regular financial bloggers out there. Tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. I think the reason why I'm different is because I'm not from the financial world. Like you said earlier, I'm a firefighter, paramedic, and I had no idea that I would ever be talking personal finance or talking money or doing a blog or anything like that. That was never my dream. My dream was to hop on a fire truck and, lights and sirens and all that kind of fun stuff. And then one day we woke up and we realized we were out of money. And this is in 2011. And we both had jobs. My wife, she works on television, and I have a job with the fire service. And so we have a steady income coming in and things were going great. And then one day we went to go get groceries and we were completely out of money. And we had way too much debt, and we just kind of had this mindset that we were just going to keep going and going, and life was going to be great, and that the fun was never going to stop. And one day it did. So what we did is we learned that everything we had been taught about money, which wasn't very much, was wrong. It was definitely wrong. We started doing the opposite of everything, and it worked. And so many times people looked at us and thought, man, you guys are crazy. You guys are, what's wrong with you? You guys aren't going out to eat anymore. You're not going on vacations anymore. Where's all your credit cards? And all these things. And we just said, we're going to do things opposite of what we were doing because we were wrong for so long. We had to admit that. And so I think how it plays out is I never paid attention to the financial world in the past. So now I have this voice where I say, no, this is what works because I actually went through it. And sometimes I think I'm a little bit different in a way that, people say, well, I'll tell you, I don't use any credit cards at all. We haven't used a credit card since 2011, and knock on wood, we're still alive. But people think I'm crazy. Yeah, people think I'm crazy for not having a credit card. And they're like, well, you can't travel anywhere. Nope, we travel all over now because we're debt-free. And you can't rent a car. Nope, we still rent cars. So I think the reason why people think my voice is a little bit different is because you're not talking to somebody that worked at a bank. You're talking to somebody that hops on a fire truck every third day.
That's huge. Can you give me an idea of numbers, where you were and where you are now?
Absolutely. So in 2011, we like I said, we went to the grocery store. We were out of money. We were like, what is going on here? So we added it all up. We had $52,000 in debt. We had been married just over 3 years, had a 1-year-old at home, and we couldn't even afford ourselves. We had $52,000 in debt. That included credit card debt. That included an auto loan. That included some student loans, and just other miscellaneous small debts along the way that we just accumulated not paying attention. So we had all this debt, and we were paycheck to paycheck. And I always tell people that. I remember being paycheck to paycheck. I just thought that's how life was. I thought that's how you're supposed to live. You worked, money came in, you spent it all. And it turned into we were spending the money before it came in, and that's how we got in so much debt. But we ended up paying off $52,000 in 7 months, which is crazy to think back because we were paycheck to paycheck. We were struggling. But when you stop your life and you restart it and you do things that are so outside of normal, you can do these kind of things.
Wow. I just got chills, man. $52,000 in 7 months. That's incredible.
Sure. I mean, and I look back at it going, I can't believe we did this. Like, this is crazy. But I remember the the sacrifices we had to make. And they weren't fun, but looking back, 100% worth it. Would do it all over again if I had to.
That's fantastic. Our family's also working on our debt-free journey, and it's been family emergencies, or we've had to travel home, or different things, so it's been slower this year than it was our first year, but we can finally see that light at the end of the tunnel now, It's so exciting.
Well, I'll tell you what, that light that you hear about at the end of the tunnel, it is way brighter than you believe it is, because when we got to the other side, the feeling you'll have when you pay off that last debt, 4 or 5 years later, I still get chills thinking about when we walked into Bank of America and we wrote that last check out. It's unbelievable feeling. Definitely keep going. Don't give up.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. So a lot of people are struggling with student debt in America. It's just gross, man. It's one of those things that every time it comes up, you just get that pit in your stomach hearing people talk about it or what they're suffering with. And I've read a lot about what people are doing to continue to pay off their student loan. But you're the first person that suggests go ahead and refi. That's huge.
Well, see, and that's the thing. I didn't know I was the first person to suggest that because, like I said, I'm not from the financial world. So here's the way I look at it is I'm not a big fan of going into debt. But if you have debt, be smart about it. What are some ways you can speed that up? So we all know we can work a little bit extra to make extra payments. We could sell some stuff to put some money towards debt. But I also think it's important to look at it from the other side. So if you have a student loan that has a high interest rate and you've been told, oh, just stick with it, don't refinance it. Well, what if you can get a lower interest rate? And some of these loans out there, just kind of give you a little background on this. When I started looking at student loans, we had one, so it was important for us too to look at it. But with these student loans out there, so student loans weren't the biggest loan out there in 2008, 2009. Student loans were like 5th or 6th place. It went like mortgages were number 1, then it went into credit card debt, auto loans, HELOCs, and I think student loans were right below that. Okay. 2009 happens. All those debts, the mortgages, the HELOCs, the auto loans, the credit cards, they start dropping. Student loans continue to go up. Right now, they're in 2nd place. They're right behind mortgages. So in this country alone, there's $1.2 million in student loans that are outstanding. And the crazy thing is 60 billion of these numbers, or $60 billion, is owed to people age 60 or older. So the student loans aren't going away either. They're carrying with us into older age. So you start looking at this going, yes, this is what I would call a student loan crisis. So I will do anything I can to get rid of it. And if lowering my interest rate is one of them, absolutely. I worked with this girl just a couple weeks ago. She went down from a 7% student loan. Her loan was 7%. She went down to like 3.8%. She had like $50,000 or $60,000 in loans. That's a huge amount of interest that she's going to save now. Yeah. And if she keeps going at it, she's going to pay it off quicker. She's going to be out of debt sooner. So that's my whole take on, if you can refinance it, definitely refinance it.
Okay, so how would someone look for the right company to go with? Is it all just interest rates? That's all you're looking at?
No. So I looked at a couple different companies. We were at FinCon together, and I walked around and I looked at a couple different companies. And one of the companies I really, really liked, because like I said, I'm not a huge fan of lenders. I'm not a huge fan of people out there trying to sell you credit, trying to get you in debt. That's my whole thing is, hey, get out of debt. Don't mess with these people anymore, use cash. But if you're in debt, definitely take advantage of lower interest rates. So a lot of the banks out there, a lot of these student loan refinancing centers, they're all pretty close to what they offer as far as interest rates. Now, some say, you have to have $10,000 to do a refinance in outstanding debt. Some say $7,500. Some might say $12,000. But the interest rates are all pretty competitive. But one of the banks I started looking at was SoFi. And there's a reason why I really like them is there's 2 reasons. One is they had this entrepreneurship program. So a lot of people out there that are in debt, in student loan debt, they might be out there trying to start a business or grow something, and they can't because they're in debt. So SoFi allows you to take 1 year off of making payments so you can go out there and start building a business. And on top of that, they've worked with so many entrepreneurs. They actually have a program where they affiliate you with these entrepreneurs, kind of like a think tank to get you started. So that was one thing I was like, wow, no one else is doing that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then on top of that, another thing they do is say that you lose your job, no fault of your own. So you don't quit. Your job gets downsized, gets moved overseas, and you lose your job, and you have a student loan. You let SoFi know this happens. Again, they give you another year, and then they have an employment center that helps you get plugged into work where you live. So I looked at that going, wow, these people don't just care about the student loans themselves. They actually are starting to care about the people, which is that's what I'm hoping for, that, this whole thing that banks start caring a little bit more about people and student loan centers start caring more about people. And that's when I found in SoFi, I thought that's pretty neat that there's somebody's out there taking the time to actually help people instead of just, hey, refinance, sign here, and now we get your money.
Very innovative. I didn't know that about SoFi.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I'm a big proponent of SoFi and why I recommend them.
Incredible. I've heard you talk about the red-headed stepchild of financial products, the debit card. That's hilarious. I about died when I read that. So tell me why you prefer and how safe are debit cards?
Sure. So it's a myth out there that debit cards are not safe. It's an absolute myth. I bought into it. When I was 18 years old, I was going to Arizona State University, walked in day one, got my $7,000 t-shirt, and I got a credit card that went along with it. And it cost me $7,000 for that t-shirt. So credit cards were not my friend, right? But I was sold in this mindset, well, I have to have a credit card because, if there's ever an emergency, I'm going to need a credit card. And, you can't go through life, you can't buy online if you're not using a credit card. And there's all these myths out there that, if you don't have a credit card, you can't survive. And I believed it. And then what I started realizing is, no, debit cards work just like a credit card if you use them correctly. So when I say debit cards are the redheaded stepchild, it's true. People are so afraid to use these debit cards. But since 2011, we cut up our credit cards and we only use a debit card. We have a business debit card and we have a personal one. So we have these two debit cards, and anytime we use them, 100% of the time we run them as credit. And here's the reason why. If you run a debit card that has a Visa or MasterCard logo on it and you run that as a credit, you are going to get the protection from Visa or MasterCard. If you run it as a debit card and you enter in your PIN, then you're using the protection of your bank. So I looked at that going, well, Visa and MasterCard have pretty deep pockets. So that's the reason why if you buy stuff online, you can't even enter a PIN number. It's always ran as a credit card. So I always tell people, if you're going to use your debit card, which I highly recommend you do, use it as a credit card. And it's so weird is because anytime someone asks me cash or debit or credit, I'm saying credit, and I'm anti-credit cards. But yes, I'm telling you to use a debit card as a credit card. So doing this one thing is going to be huge. And I will tell you, I have had we had our debit card hacked into. And there was a couple $100 on our bank statement, or it was actually online, for something that happened overseas. Somebody got our number and bought some internet software. And it was like $200 or $300 worth. Right away, I got on the phone. I called Visa. That's the logo on my card. Called Visa, not my bank. And this was like on a weekend. And right away, they reversed those charges, and then they did their investigation. So when people say, oh, don't use your debit card, you can get wiped out clean. That's true if you use your PIN number. So I tell people, don't even have a PIN number. Forget about it. If you need money, go to the bank and get cash, and then just use your debit card as credit at all times.
Makes a lot of sense. Wow. Really insightful. That's so smart of you to call the Visa company directly instead of calling your credit union or your bank or whatever.
And how I came up with this, it wasn't like I just made it up, is I started looking at some research. And so I went to Visa's website and I went to MasterCard's website. And they both have a zero liability policy. And if you go and click on that and you read it, it says you are 100% covered for any fraudulent charges done on your credit or debit, Visa, MasterCard, or anything like that. So, I mean, it's right there on their website. I don't know why it's this huge myth. I mean, they're even telling you in plain English that, look, you are protected using a debit card if you run it as credit.
Fantastic. I think people don't do the research and they miss that.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Right.
Yeah.
Impressive. So the thing about car payments are they suck.
Yeah, they do.
Tell me more.
So I think car payments are one of the worst financial products on the market. And the reason why is it's pure numbers. So you can look it up online. You can go on a NATA guide that's a reliable source, or go to Kelley Blue Book. But take a car that's 4 years old, look at the MSRP on it when it was new, and then look at what it's worth now. And most cars lose 60 to 70% of their value in the first 4 years. I just did some research the other day. I found that cars now are losing 11% by the time you get them from the car lot to your driveway, 11% in value. So I'm thinking, man, the average car payment in America is $482 over, I think, right around 66, 68 months. Mm-hmm. So people are buying these cars, and in those first 3 to 4 years, you can't keep up with the depreciation. It's going down faster than you can keep up with it. And what happens after 3 or 4 years? We get car fever again. We want to go buy a new car. So what we do is we're taking these cars and we're writing down the depreciation from brand new to 40% of its value, 40 to 30% of its value. We're selling it, and then we're going back in these cycles again. We're doing this over and over again, and that's why you start hearing, oh, car payments are just a way of life. It's just the way it has to be. You have to have a car payment. And I started looking at this, and I thought, what if I just bought a 4-year-old car? Right? So that's what we started doing. So the last vehicle that we bought, it was we still have it. It's a 2002 Yukon Denali. And it's old, right? It's older. And so I bought it. We paid cash for it. We paid $8,000 for this Yukon. And when I got the title in the mail, because people don't even realize that when you buy a car and you pay cash for it or you pay it off, they give you a title, like you actually own it. And I get the title in the mail. In the top left corner, it shows, what the list price was, what the original owner paid for it. They paid $48,900.
Wow.
And then I'm over here and I paid $8,000. And I said, you know what? I'm going to continue to let somebody else take the $48,000 to $8,000 hit. I'm going to buy this $8,000 vehicle. I'll drive it for 2 or 3 years, and I'll sell it for 6.
Yeah.
Right? So if I do this 3 or 4 or 5 times over the next 10 years, that's the separation in wealth right there. I mean, car payments are just a huge separation of wealth. It's, I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, The Millionaire Next Door.
Yes.
So the average millionaire in America, what do they drive? A 2-year older car. When asked why, they said, we'll let somebody else take the depreciation. We don't want to. We'd rather put our money in things that go up in value.
So, and you started your whole journey, you had some car debt. So was that a big learning transition for you? Or was that hard to give up a car payment? What was that like?
Yeah, absolutely. It was hard because it was my wife's car, right? So, yeah, that was really hard. So we bought a car. We went literally, this is how immature we were with money, but we just pulled up to a dealership on a whim and thought, oh, there's a cool looking car. Let's go take a look at it. We signed a note right there for $38,000 for a new Acura RDX. We could not afford this car, by the way. No way we should have bought this car. There's no way we could have afforded it. We get home and I'm like, I wonder what kind of deal we got. And I looked up the Kelley Blue Book value, if I were to buy it right now or sell it right now. And I thought we just overpaid like $3,000 or $4,000. Well, the reason why is because I didn't realize they lose 11% by the time you get them in the driveway. So we had this new car and, right away, after 2 months of owning it, I said, hey, let's sell this car. Well, my wife wasn't quite on board yet. She thought, well, we just bought this car.
Right.
And my friends already think we're weird enough that we don't have credit cards and, we're doing all this other craziness. We're canceling vacations and we're selling everything on eBay and we're having garage sales and, you're going to start cleaning pools, I guess, on the side. I mean, these were these plans that I had in my head. And so I'm like, yeah, we're going to sell your car too. So we actually didn't end up selling our car right away. We sucked it up and we paid it off. I mean, it took us, that was one of our biggest debts. We kept paying it off. We had some good fortune. I actually broke my leg and this is how dumb I was. I didn't know I had Aflac. I had Aflac at the time, had no idea. We were making monthly payments on it. This is how out of shape we were financially. Well, when you break your leg, Aflac gave us some money. So we used that to help pay off the car and some other stuff. So we got the car paid off and we were like, yes, we've made it. And then it was at that moment my wife goes, let's sell the car. So we ended up selling the car and we bought a used Kia, which we both like the Kia way more, especially with having kids. They can ruin it. We don't care because it's old. And we took that money, we put into the rest of the money we had left over, put into savings. And I mean, we've never looked back. We're never going to have a new car again because yes, now we're out of debt. We've built some wealth over the last 4 years and we could afford a new car. But the opportunity cost of not being able to take that money and putting it into something that goes up in value and having to ride it going down in value, to me, it's not worth it.
Right.
It's a piece of metal that you impress people with at the intersection you don't know.
Totally. And I loved what you just said about it before you guys were immature with money. I think a lot of America is really immature with money, but we haven't taken time to learn more about that. What would you say to that?
Well, it's not your fault or my fault or anyone's fault. We're just not taught about it. I mean, I think there's definitely financial illiteracy in this country. I mean, I don't remember ever learning how to balance a checkbook in any of my grade school or high school. I don't remember ever learning anything about stocks or mutual funds, but I do remember learning a lot about boron and a lot about plant biology, right? And I think that, I'm not saying that stuff's not important, but we're sending these people out into college, into universities with no idea how to handle money. And then we wonder why there's this student loan crisis. And then on top of that, I mean, we let 18-year-old kids walk. I mean, an 18-year-old kid should not be allowed to walk in and say, yeah, I'd like $100,000 for education. Here you go, sir. You know, that doesn't even make sense. They would never be able to do that in any other instance, but we allow them to do that with student loans. So I think it's just out of control. Like, if you want it now, you can have it now. You just have to finance it. But no one ever talks about what happens when you just finance your entire life into payments. I'll tell you what happens. You run out of money at the grocery store. So I think the reason why we have podcasts like your wonderful podcast and there's financial blogs out there is people are starting to pay attention. I mean, I always tell people, hey, this whole getting out of debt thing is starting to become cool. Like, personal finance talk was like, no, we don't talk about that. You know, that's stuff we wipe underneath the bed and we don't talk about it ever again. Well, no, it's starting to become cool again because people are talking about it. And there's a lot of good avenues out there where you can go out there and you can learn about it, whether it's through podcasts, whether it's through blogs on the internet. There's classes you can take online. There's classes you can take through churches. And now even in high schools, there's programs across the country that private companies are coming into high schools that are sponsored by banks, believe it or not, and they're teaching kids about money. So I think it's definitely starting to catch on. It's starting to become cool because it's necessary.
Oh, that's fantastic. One thing that you do to teach people about money is send them the budget.
Sure. The thing I always tell people is if you're not on a budget, it's not going to work. Nothing else is going to work. I always tell people you don't take a road trip without a fuel gauge. So why would you go through life without knowing what's going on with your money? Everything we do in life, money interacts in it. I mean, there's not one thing you do that money doesn't interact with. You know, I always tell people, some guy said, well, what if I was going to go live out in the wilderness and just hunt and eat and fish and all that kind of stuff? Well, you still got to buy a fishing pole, right? So everything out there costs money. So if you're not budgeting your money, you're not paying attention to what's going in and what's going out, naturally, as human beings, more is going to go out than goes in, right? Mm-hmm. We're just natural spenders. We like stuff, especially here in America. We love stuff. So if you're doing that, you know, and you're not on a budget, then it's not going to work. So we started to create, I'm a little Excel nerd. And I created a budget in 2011 when we first started getting out of debt. And I always tell people it's one of the biggest reasons why we were able to stay on track is because visually every month we could see it. And every month we squeeze a little bit tighter in that budget so we could put more toward debt. And we did this over and over again. And then I figured out a way to put it on our cell phone so we could be out on a go and do our budget. So I thought, you know what, if people had this, what a benefit. Then they could do the same thing. So I started just saying, you know what, if you want my budget, here it is. It's on my website. Go download it. It's free. It's yours. Have it, utilize it. And then I started every month with people that get my budget, I just resend them another one every single month. It's easy for me to do and it helps. It actually helps.
And has that pulled people in to learn more from you? Absolutely.
Yeah. People, I mean, the lady that I was helping with the student loan refinance, she would have never have refinanced her student loan down, 2.5%, 3% interest if she didn't download the budget a couple months ago, utilize that budget, get involved with her finances, start realizing, holy cow, I have this student loan and here's what the balance is. She would never have paid attention to that to go refinance her student loan if it wasn't for first getting on a budget.
Wow, that's so insightful of you, because I think when people mention the word budget, it kind of pushes people off or creates that wall of this is going to be painful and miserable and horrible. And the way you send it and the way you send it out to people where they can either do it on the spreadsheet or they can just handwrite it out, that is just cutting that barrier down and really helping people. So smart of you.
Well, budgets, I mean, that's the thing is I at one time believed too, like, I'm not going to be on a budget. That's like being walked by, like, on a leash, like I'm a dog, like I'm going to be so restrictive. I don't have any freedom anymore.
Right.
And that's just another myth out there. So you create the budget. That's what I tell people is it's not me creating the budget for you. You actually punch in the numbers. You know what you bring in every month. You know what you need to spend. So it's basically just, it's no more or no less than a fuel gauge for your car is a budget is to your life. It's just there. And it just kind of keeps you in check on, okay, look, we have X amount of dollars to spend, so let's spend it wisely. Let's have some fun with our money. So I tell people when you're creating a budget, create a fun category, create a going out to eat category, create that, whatever you wanted, a vacation category. That's all acceptable. It's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. Just spend what you have coming in.
Wow, fantastic. So for that guy that's listening or that person that's listening right now and really struggling with money, they don't even know where to start, what's the one thing you would tell them, Chris?
Absolutely start on a budget. So it's the first thing I always tell people, that first thing when I sit down with somebody and I help them with their finances, the first thing we do is we look at the budget. So we get out a paper or the spreadsheet, whichever they prefer, and we look at, okay, what's your income? Let's start there. And sometimes it's funny. People are like, I don't even know what my income is. So we look that up. We find out what's your take-home pay. And then we start going through, okay, what's your mortgage or what's your rent? And how much do you spend on groceries each month? And what's your insurance payments? And, what's your fuel costs? We start going through and we start making these categories. And then we start putting it all on paper and say, okay, you have $4,000 coming in and you have $4,200 going out each month. So that's why we've had this little crisis. We've been doing this over and over again. So let's start looking at where we can take money out that we're overspending. And a lot of times it's, man, I had no idea I was spending that much money there. But when you do a budget for the first time in your life, two things happen is you're going to start winning with money because you're going to start paying attention. You're going to start evaluating it, making changes in your life. But another thing is you start to feel this sense that I can do this, right? I just made my first budget. I might be 45 years old, but I just made my first ever budget. And if I can make my budget and I can stick to this, then plan B is start getting out of debt. And if I can get out of debt, then I can start building for retirement. If I can start building for retirement, I can start paying off my house early. And all of a sudden these things start happening in your mind that, you can keep going and going and going to the point where now you're teaching other people to do it.
Yeah. For me, that's been the most amazing thing is right now we're coordinating a financial peace class and a lot of our people are getting ready to retire and they have not sat down and set up that budget. And I just think, wow, life could have been totally different for that person. And you've been a coordinator. You've been coordinating classes for a while now, right?
Yeah, so I started off a couple years ago, listened to Dave Ramsey's show on the radio, and I remember he mentioned something about, we need coordinators, we need people to help, lead these classes. And I'm like, I tell people about this stuff all day long. Maybe I'll lead a class. So I started leading a class that turned into 5 classes. And then one cool thing we were able to do is there's a non-for-profit group here in Phoenix that they support firefighters and police officers in Arizona who have been killed in line of duty. They support their families. And so we went and we approached them about 2 years ago and we said, look, here's the deal. We have this program and we would love some sponsorship. We'd love to take some firefighters and police officers through it. It's the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University program. So they looked at it, they liked it. And now every Arizona firefighter and police officer gets to go through this class for free. And so I coordinate the one in my department. And then there's other cities that are starting to find guys in their city who are passionate about helping people get out of debt and save money and get on a budget. And they're starting to coordinate it. So it's pretty cool to start seeing that we have these police officers and firefighters that are going through and getting educated on personal finance. And you're right. Some of them are getting ready to retire. But, hey, I'd rather them learn now than never.
Absolutely. Wow. I didn't know that that's how it all got started, how you're reaching out to especially those people that are out serving the community every single day and clearly are not being paid as much as they should be paid. So by helping them get finances in order, wow, what a smart thing to do.
Yeah, it was great. And I'll give a little plug out. It's called the Hunter Club of Arizona. They're the ones that are sponsoring it. And they've been amazingly generous, to say the least.
The Hunter Club?
100 Club.
Oh, 100 Club. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. We'll have that in the show notes so people can check it out a little bit more. Wow. Incredible. So using cash has given your family a raise. And even with your wife on television several times a week, she is a smart shopper, right?
Sure. Yeah. So she is. She definitely is. And I have to say I'm extremely proud of her because she really does an awesome job with budgeting with clothing, because that was a big thing. So my wife, for those of you who don't know, she is a TV news anchor. So when she got hired as a TV news anchor, automatically we both thought, well, we have to buy really, really, really expensive clothes. I mean, right? We had this thing in our mind that everybody on TV, everybody watching is going to know how much that thing costs. It can't be, we'll be embarrassed if it was a cheap piece of clothing. Mm-hmm. So we had this mindset that, a dress costs $350. That's just how much they cost. And we have to buy one every couple weeks. And, so it was just out of control. So when we started going through this process, I remember one of our categories in our budget is called department stores. And so anything that you can buy at a department store, whether it's Target or Neiman Marcus or Macy's or whatever, it's called department stores. So we started cutting that down pretty good. I mean, we basically cut it down to about 25% of what we had it at. And I remember she was thinking, I can't buy one dress now. What am I going to do? So we started thinking, I don't know, what are we going to do? So she started getting creative. And I'm telling you, she goes to Target. She goes to, I've seen her go to Kohl's. There's these little boutique shops here that are, near her house that she goes to. And she finds dresses, literally $20 dresses, these $20 dresses. And so she has quite a big following on social media. And, she gets people emailing her and contacting her. And they're always saying, oh, where did you get that dress? And she proudly will say, oh, I got it at Target. And people are just so shocked that this girl on TV is shopping at Target. This girl on TV is, and when she goes to Target or goes to any of these places, she will even bargain with the lady there. I mean, and she doesn't just do that with clothing. I always tell people there's this chair in my office and I do not like the chair at all. It's ugly. It has 2 legs in the back and wheels in the front. It doesn't even make sense to have a chair like this. And so she wanted this chair. We were on about one time, and I think the chair was like $220, something crazy. And I'm like, absolutely, that chair is terrible. And she goes, what if I can get it for $100? That's how much we had in our envelope for department stores, $100. And I'm like, if you can get it for $100, you can buy the chair. So she brought the lady in, and she said, this chair's been out, on display for a while. It's a little faded. There's a little scratch here in the leg. And she got this lady down to $100. And I thought, my wife has made it. She's arrived. She is now a bargainer.
A bargainer on TV. Wow, that's such a powerful story because you can talk yourself into you need this to reach a certain status or you need the clothes to make the image. What a power example she is just from being such a smart shopper. Nice work.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, it's almost funny. She comes home and she'll be like, how much do you think this cost? And I don't want to I'm like, I don't know. She's like, $3. I'm like, that shirt was $3. Like, where do you find $3 shirts? She just finds them,
Oh, that's great. That is so great. So, Chris, for people to learn more about you, get the budget, and just hear more of your energy and your zest and the focus that you have on getting your finances fixed, where can they find all your info?
So you can go to my website, moneypeach.com. So a little background of that. My name's Chris, and my last name is Peach. Well, it's not exactly Peach, but people my entire life have called me Peach. And I don't even think some of my best friends know my name anymore. They know me as Peach. And I like to talk about money, so I got real creative here. I just said Money Peach. So moneypeach.com. Go there. If you want the budget, there's a tab at the top that says budget. Click on that, and it'll take you there, and it's yours. Take it, use it. And if you have any questions, email me. I'm pretty good about emailing everyone back. So if you have any questions, I will get back to you.
Oh, fantastic. Hey, Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Think Enriched with Amy Robles. To find out more, go to thinkenriched.com. Because we all know your enriched life is about way more than money.